Hello, my friends. Leave a comment where you see us and at what time. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel.
Our college reunion trip was supposed to be a triumphant return to nature, a week-long backpacking excursion through a remote section of the Appalachian Trail in Shenandoah National Park, Virginia. Liam, our self-proclaimed survival expert, had meticulously planned every detail, from the dehydrated meals to the advanced GPS units, assuring us he would be our protector and guide through the wilderness, a beacon of competence for our group of four. He'd always been charismatic, a natural leader, and we trusted him implicitly, especially since Sarah, his girlfriend, and our mutual friend since freshman year, vouched for his extensive outdoor experience. The first few days were idyllic. Crisp autumn air, vibrant foliage, and the kind of camaraderie that only deep friendships forged over years can sustain. We shared laughter, old memories, and the shared challenge of the mountainous terrain, unaware that the real challenge, far more sinister, was hiking right alongside us, its true nature concealed beneath a veneer of shared adventure and carefully orchestrated reassurances, setting a false sense of security for the horrifying ordeal that lay ahead of us, deep within the ancient silent embrace of the Blue Ridge Mountains, where cell service vanished like whispers in the wind, leaving us isolated and vulnerable to the unfolding nightmare. The shift began subtly on day 3, after we passed a weathered ranger station, the last sign of civilization for miles. Liam started rationing water and food far more aggressively than necessary, citing unseen dangers and potential shortages, despite our ample supplies. His jokes grew sharper, his instructions more militaristic, and he seemed to relish exerting control, especially over Sarah, who became increasingly withdrawn and pale. We initially dismissed it as trail fatigue or stress, the pressure of leading an expedition, but an unsettling undercurrent of tension began to ripple through the group, a subtle but palpable unease that started to overshadow the breathtaking vistas and the simple joy of being outdoors. He began to accuse me and Mark, our other friend, of sabotaging equipment or wasting resources, his eyes narrowing with suspicion, a paranoia that seemed to sprout from nowhere, festering in the isolated expanse of the forest. The once friendly banter turned into pointed remarks, then outright accusations, his voice growing colder with each passing mile, and the very air around us seemed to thicken with his escalating malice, suffocating our attempts at reason or understanding, as if the wilderness itself was holding its breath, anticipating the next chilling escalation. That evening, deep in a secluded hollow, as twilight bled into the inkiness of a moonless night, Liam's true colors burst forth in a terrifying display. After we'd set up camp near a trickling stream, he confronted Sarah, accusing her of flirting with a passing hiker we hadn't even seen, his voice rising from a low growl to a furious roar. He smashed her water bottle against the tree trunk, scattering its contents, then grabbed her arm with a violent force that shocked us all into stunned silence, his face contorted into an unrecognizable mask of rage. Mark and I tried to intervene, to de-escalate the volatile situation, but Liam, fueled by some unseen inner demon, turned on us with the same wild fury, pushing Mark violently to the ground and seizing my arm, his grip like steel clamps. The air crackled with a primal fear as we realized this wasn't just an argument. It was an explosion of bottled-up resentment and calculated malice, and his protective facade had utterly crumbled, revealing a predator lurking beneath the surface of the friend we thought we knew, leaving us trapped in the deepening shadows of the Appalachian wilderness, miles from any form of rescue or intervention. The abuse escalated quickly, a twisted game of power and control. Liam destroyed our remaining communication devices, smashing our satellite phone against a rock until it shattered into useless fragments, effectively cutting us off from the outside world. Then he enforced a brutal regiment, forcing us to hike for excruciating hours, denying us proper rest or sustenance, his twisted logic dictating that we were being disciplined for our supposed disobedience. He singled out Sarah for particular cruelty, making her carry the heaviest pack, forcing her to walk behind him, and subjecting her to constant verbal degradation, breaking her spirit with every scathing remark. Mark, ever the peacemaker, attempted to reason with him, to appeal to the old Liam, but his pleas only seemed to enrage our captor further, resulting in physical assaults that left Mark bruised and defeated. The nights were the worst, filled with whispered threats and the chilling realization that our once trusted friend had transformed into a tormentor, his eyes glinting with a perverse satisfaction under the cold, indifferent gaze of the ancient Appalachian stars. As we huddled together, shivering from fear more than cold, wondering if we would survive the ordeal. Our only hope lay in reaching the next trailhead, a distant dot on our mangled map where we prayed for a ranger station or even a passing hiker. We formed a silent pact, a desperate alliance against our oppressor. Mark, despite his injuries, managed to covertly mark our trail with small, almost invisible symbols, hoping against hope that someone might eventually follow our path. I meticulously memorized landmarks, calculating our exact location whenever Liam wasn't watching, trying to piece together an escape route or a way to signal for help, however futile it seemed. Sarah, though visibly broken, clung to the faintest glimmer of defiance, using her limited moments of privacy to hide scraps of food or sips of water for us. But Liam possessed an uncanny awareness, his eyes seemingly everywhere, anticipating our every move. He'd occasionally offer a glimmer of his old self, a fleeting smile or a nostalgic remark, only to snatch it away moments later, plunging us back into the chilling reality of our captivity. His manipulation, a psychological torture that kept us on edge, unsure of his next move, as the days blurred into a horrifying progression of fear and desperation. The breaking point arrived on day 5. Exhausted, dehydrated, and bruised, we stumbled upon a small derelict hunter's cabin, barely more than a shack, deep in the woods. Liam, for reasons unknown, decided we would spend the night there. While he was scavenging for firewood, Mark, seizing a desperate opportunity, lunged at him, attempting to disarm him of his hunting knife. The struggle was swift and brutal, a desperate tangle of limbs and grunts in the dim light of the cabin. Liam, surprisingly strong and fueled by a manic energy, overpowered Mark, pinning him against the rough wooden wall, the glint of his blade catching the faint light filtering through the grimy window. Sarah screamed, a raw, guttural sound of pure terror, as I scrambled to find something, anything, to use as a weapon. The cabin, with its oppressive silence and musty air, became the stage for our final desperate struggle, the smell of dust and decaying wood mingling with the metallic tang of fear, as the true horror of our situation solidified, leaving no doubt that our lives were hanging by a thread, completely at the mercy of the man who once called himself our friend. Just as Liam raised the knife, a faint, rhythmic thumping echoed through the woods, growing steadily louder. It was the distinct sound of a helicopter rotor, slowly approaching, its blades slicing through the silence like a lifeline from above. Liam froze, his eyes darting frantically towards the sound, his composure visibly cracking for the first time. The very notion of external interference seemed to shatter his illusion of absolute control. The helicopter hovered directly over the cabin, its powerful searchlight piercing the darkness, illuminating our desperate tableau in a stark, blinding white. The rhythmic thumping transformed into a roaring crescendo, drowning out the frantic beat of our own hearts, as a rescue team, clad in bright orange vests, began to rappel down ropes, their figures stark against the powerful beam. The sudden, overwhelming presence of authority and the promise of intervention seemed to drain all the malevolent energy from Liam, leaving him momentarily paralyzed, his cruel reign instantly shattered by the unexpected arrival of civilization and the relentless, undeniable gaze of the rescue team. 2 park rangers and a local sheriff deputy, their faces grim, quickly secured Liam, who offered no resistance, his eyes vacant and devoid of the manic rage that had consumed him moments ago. They provided immediate medical attention to Mark, whose arm was badly cut, and to Sarah, who was suffering from severe dehydration and shock. As they led Liam away, his head bowed, the rangers explained that Mark's parents, worried by the lack of contact after 5 days, had alerted the authorities, initiating a comprehensive search operation that utilized aerial surveillance and ground teams. Our subtle trail markers, combined with the last known GPS coordinates from Liam's emergency beacon, which he must have forgotten he still carried before destroying our other devices, had allowed them to pinpoint our location, saving us from a fate that felt increasingly inevitable in the dark confines of the wilderness. The relief that washed over us was
Our annual boys' trip to Moab, Utah was a tradition, a pilgrimage to the Red Rock Wonderland for mountain biking, hiking, and late-night stargazing. This year, Dave, a new addition to our core group, insisted on joining, promising to be the ultimate companion, brimming with enthusiasm and seemingly endless anecdotes about his daring adventures, which we later realized were meticulously crafted exaggerations. He'd met our friend Mike through a shared hobby, and Mike, always one to give people a chance, had vouched for his character and his purported outdoor prowess, assuring us he would be a great fit for our rugged escapades. The initial days were typical, adrenaline-fueled rides through Arches National Park, breathtaking sunsets over canyonlands, and the easy camaraderie that flowed between us, fueled by shared experiences and a thirst for adventure. We navigated treacherous trails, marveled at ancient geological formations, and laughed under the vast, unpolluted canvas of the night sky, completely oblivious to the insidious poison that was slowly seeping into our carefully cultivated camaraderie, a silent menace masquerading as friendship, ready to shatter the tranquility of our desert retreat with a chilling display of its true, malevolent nature as the sun beat down on the ancient, unforgiving landscape. The subtle shifts began after a particularly challenging descent down a steep, rocky trail, where Dave, despite his earlier boasts, struggled immensely and fell repeatedly, damaging his bike. His initial apologies quickly turned into thinly veiled resentment, then sharp, biting criticisms directed at us, blaming the route, the equipment, even our alleged lack of support. His once infectious energy transformed into a brooding sullenness, and he started to isolate himself, walking ahead or lagging behind, refusing to engage in our usual group discussions or participate in shared chores. We tried to smooth things over, to reassure him, but every attempt at reconciliation was met with a cold stare or a dismissive shrug, his eyes harboring a peculiar glint of anger that we couldn't quite decipher. The vibrant red rocks, once a source of awe, began to feel oppressive, their vast silence amplifying the growing discomfort between us, turning the majestic beauty of the landscape into a suffocating backdrop for the brewing storm of his escalating negativity and veiled threats, casting a long, chilling shadow over our once harmonious desert escape, slowly but surely eroding the very foundation of our trust. The turning point occurred on the 4th day, during a hike through a remote, less traveled section of the desert. We were several miles from our campsite, exploring a narrow slot canyon, when Dave suddenly stopped, his back to us, his body rigid. He then turned slowly, a chilling, predatory smile spreading across his face, his eyes devoid of any warmth, reflecting only a cold, calculated malevolence. "You think you're so smart, "Don't you?" he hissed, his voice unnervingly calm, completely stripped of its former boisterousness. He then pulled out a small, gleaming knife, not a typical utility tool, but a wickedly sharp, custom-made blade that glinted menacingly in the sparse sunlight filtering into the canyon. "This trip has been a real eye-opener," he continued, stepping closer, blocking our only path forward. "You guys have no idea who you're dealing with." His casual tone, juxtaposed with the glinting blade, sent a jolt of pure dread through us, paralyzing us in the confined space of the canyon. The sheer impossibility of the situation slowly sinking in as the ancient walls around us seemed to press inward, trapping us with our newfound tormentor. The true nightmare began as Dave forced us deeper into the canyon, away from any established trails or possible rescue routes, his demeanor chillingly composed as he dictated our every move. He reveled in our terror, his eyes gleaming with a sick satisfaction as he stripped us of our water and essential gear, leaving us vulnerable to the harsh desert elements. He subjected us to a series of humiliating and dangerous tests, forcing us to navigate treacherous rock faces without proper equipment or to crawl through narrow, suffocating passages, all while he watched, a detached observer, enjoying our escalating fear and desperation. Mike, brave and resourceful, tried to create distractions, to find a way to overpower him, but Dave seemed to anticipate every move, his reflexes unnervingly quick, as if he had rehearsed these scenarios countless times in his own twisted mind. The canyon walls, once magnificent, now loomed as prison walls, trapping us in a relentless cycle of psychological and physical torment, with the scorching sun above and the cold, unfeeling rock beneath, mirroring the escalating, merciless cruelty of our former friend who had orchestrated our isolation with sinister precision. Our only slender thread of hope rested on the fact that Mike had left a detailed itinerary with his family back home, including our planned routes and estimated return times. We knew they would eventually alert authorities if we didn't check in, but the desert is vast and unforgiving, and we were in a remote, rarely traversed section. Dave, seemingly aware of this ticking clock, pushed us relentlessly, forcing us to abandon our damaged bikes and hike miles through the scorching heat, our bodies screaming in protest, our minds clouded by fear and exhaustion. He boasted about his meticulous planning, how he had studied our habits, learned our weaknesses, and chosen this specific, isolated canyon for his cruel experiment. A place where, as he chillingly put it, no one would ever find us. His words were a constant reminder of our predicament, a psychological weapon more potent than any blade. As the relentless sun beat down, blurring the line between reality and hallucination, eroding our will to resist with every agonizing step. The torment culminated on the 6th day as our water ran out completely. Dave, in a macabre display of power, poured his own remaining water onto the parched desert ground, his eyes fixed on our desperate faces, a cruel smirk playing on his lips. "You don't deserve it," he sneered, his voice raspy from dehydration, yet still imbued with a disturbing sense of triumph. He then pulled out his phone, inexplicably still working in this desolate location, and began recording us, forcing us to make desperate pleas for help, for water, for mercy, for a chance to escape, promising to send the footage to our families if we didn't comply with every demand, a final sadistic act of control designed to break our spirits completely. The desert landscape, once a symbol of freedom, now felt like a vast, inescapable prison, its endless horizons mocking our futile struggles, reflecting the bleakness of our dwindling hope as we face the agonizing prospect of a slow, agonizing demise, utterly at the mercy of a monster disguised as a friend whose true face had finally been revealed in the most brutal way imaginable, leaving us teetering on the precipice of despair. Suddenly, a faint, distant hum rippled through the air, barely discernible above the ringing in our ears, growing steadily louder until it resolved into the unmistakable throb of an engine. A small, single-engine plane, painted in the distinct yellow and red of a search and rescue aircraft, appeared on the horizon, cutting through the vast blue sky like a savior. Dave's composure shattered instantly. His eyes, which had been so cold and calculating, now darted frantically between us and the approaching plane, a flicker of genuine panic replacing his sadistic glee. He fumbled with his knife, as if debating one last desperate act, but the sight of the plane circling above us, its wings glinting in the sun, seemed to drain the last vestiges of his malevolent courage. The hum grew into a roar, and then, slowly, a figure emerged from the plane, rappelling down towards the canyon floor, a beacon of hope against the red rock, signaling the abrupt and unexpected end of Dave's terrifying reign and the beginning of our liberation, as the harsh reality of our predicament shifted, finally, towards the promise of safety. Within minutes, 2 grim-faced park rangers and a sheriff's deputy were on the canyon floor, their presence a stark contrast.
Our annual family vacation to a secluded lake house on the north shore of Lake Tahoe, California, had always been a cherished tradition, a week of blissful escape filled with boating, hiking, and evenings spent by the crackling fire, telling ghost stories under the starry skies. This year, my cousin Maria invited her new boyfriend, Alex, a charming, outwardly affable man she'd recently met, assuring us he was family material and would seamlessly blend into our close-knit gathering. He was polite, attentive, and seemingly eager to impress, always offering to help with chores and engaging in lively conversations, quickly earning the approval of my parents and aunts, who saw him as a welcome addition to our summer retreat, a seemingly perfect fit for our idyllic getaway. The first few days unfolded as planned, filled with the usual joy and relaxation that only a Tahoe vacation could provide. Mornings spent kayaking on the crystalline waters, afternoons hiking through fragrant pine forests, and evenings filled with board games and shared laughter. A picture of perfect harmony, completely unaware of the lurking darkness he meticulously concealed beneath his polished exterior, patiently waiting for the opportune moment to reveal his sinister agenda. The subtle shifts began after a particularly competitive evening of charades, where Alex's jovial demeanor abruptly soured after his team lost. He grew cold, withdrawn, and began making snide remarks, initially disguised as playful teasing, but quickly escalating into pointed jabs aimed at Maria, questioning her intelligence and loyalty. We dismissed it as a sore loser moment, a quirk of his personality, but the tension lingered, a palpable chill that settled over the previously warm atmosphere of the lake house. He started to exhibit controlling behaviors, insisting on where Maria went, who she spoke to, and even subtly monitoring her phone usage, creating an unspoken unease among us. His charming smile now felt forced, his eyes holding a calculating glint that belied his outward pleasantness. The tranquil beauty of Lake Tahoe seemed to mock our growing discomfort. the pristine blue waters reflecting a deeper, unsettling darkness that was steadily encroaching upon our family sanctuary, transforming the very air inside the cozy vacation home into a suffocating blanket of suspicion and escalating fear. The facade truly crumbled on day 4, after a casual suggestion for a group hike up to Eagle Lake. Alex vehemently opposed it, insisting Maria stay with him at the house, citing a sudden headache. When she hesitated, his voice dropped to a low, menacing tone, stripped of its previous charm, his eyes narrowing to slits. "You're going to choose them over me after everything?" he hissed, his grip tightening on her arm, his knuckles turning white. The words were a stark, chilling threat, filled with an unspoken history that sent a shiver down my spine. The air in the usually vibrant living room grew heavy with unspoken fear, the comfortable silence shattered by the raw tension of the moment. It was a chilling display of possessive control, a stark contrast to the charming persona he had so carefully cultivated, and a horrifying revelation that his affection for Maria was rooted not in love, but in a desperate, suffocating need for dominance, an insidious manipulation that had finally come to light, exposing the true, malicious nature of our seemingly perfect guest. That evening, the abuse escalated, turning our serene family vacation into a prison of fear. Alex confiscated Maria's phone, isolating us from us, and began a systematic campaign of psychological torment, alternating between furious outbursts and chillingly calm demands, his voice a venomous whisper that permeated every corner of the house. He controlled what Maria ate, when she slept, and even dictated her conversations, ensuring she couldn't reveal the true extent of his cruelty. When my aunt, Maria's mother, tried to gently intervene, suggesting they take a break from each other, Alex erupted in a fit of rage, smashing a glass against the wall, his eyes blazing with a terrifying intensity that sent shivers down our spines. He then cut the landline phone cord, effectively severing our last connection to the outside world, a calculated move that left us trapped and vulnerable, witnessing the terrifying transformation of a charming guest into a controlling captor. His manipulative facade completely dismantled, leaving only the chilling reality of our predicament, as the once warm lake house transformed into a silent, suffocating stage for his escalating, insidious torment.
Our family, caught between disbelief and mounting terror, found ourselves walking on eggshells, tiptoeing around his unpredictable outbursts. We tried to subtly signal to Maria, to offer her an escape route, but Alex's vigilance was unnerving. He seemed to possess an almost supernatural awareness, his eyes tracking our every movement, his ears attuned to every whispered conversation, making any attempt at communication or intervention feel impossibly risky. The idyllic views of Lake Tahoe outside the windows became a cruel taunt, a reminder of the freedom we had lost within the confines of our own vacation home. The sense of helplessness was suffocating, turning every shared meal into a tense ordeal, every evening by the fire into a silent vigil of fear, as the once familiar sounds of our family home were replaced by the chilling whispers of a tyrant and the terrifying realization that our beloved lake house had become a cage, its walls trapping us with a predator who had seamlessly integrated himself into our lives, patiently waiting to exert his absolute, malicious control over those who had welcomed him in. The climax arrived during what was supposed to be our farewell dinner. Alex, seemingly agitated by an unspoken slight, cornered Maria in the kitchen, his voice a low, furious growl,
accusing her of defying him. He grabbed her arm with such force that a vase of flowers crashed to the floor, shattering into 1,000 pieces, the sound echoing through the house like a gunshot. My father, usually calm and composed, finally intervened directly, stepping between them, his face stern. "That's enough, Alex," he said, his voice firm but trembling slightly. "You need to leave." Alex's eyes, filled with a cold, terrifying rage, fixed on my father. He then lunged, not at Maria, but at my father, pushing him violently against the counter, a terrifying display of unbridled aggression that exposed the full, brutal extent of his malice, confirming our worst fears. The kitchen, usually a place of warmth and laughter, became a battleground, its familiar comforts transformed into a backdrop for the horrifying, inescapable reality of our confrontation with the monster in our midst.
Just as the confrontation reached its peak, a series of urgent knocks rattled the front door, echoing through the tense silence of the house. It was the local police. My aunt, discreetly using a hidden burner phone she kept for emergencies, a habit we often teased her about, had managed to send a distress text to a neighbor with reliable cell service, who then alerted the authorities after sensing the growing tension and observing Alex's increasingly erratic behavior. The sound of the police knocking seemed to snap Alex out of his enraged trance, his eyes widening in sudden, panicked realization. He immediately released my father, his face draining of color, and took a hesitant step back, his carefully constructed facade of control crumbling in the face of imminent exposure. The sudden, unexpected arrival of law enforcement felt like a deus ex machina, a miraculous intervention that snatched us back from the brink of the terrifying abyss, bringing an abrupt and unexpected end to his cruel reign of terror within the sanctuary of our family vacation home. Two uniformed deputies, their expressions stern, entered the lake house, their presence instantly shifting the balance of power. They quickly assessed the situation, noticing the shattered glass, the tense atmosphere, and Maria's visibly distraught state. They calmly separated Alex from the family, their professional demeanor unwavering as they questioned him about the disturbance. He initially attempted to charm and deflect, spinning a tale of family misunderstanding and exaggerated reactions. But the deputies, experienced in domestic disputes, saw through his thinly veiled lies. Maria, emboldened by their presence, bravely recounted the escalating abuse and his controlling behavior, her voice trembling but resolute. They promptly arrested Alex on charges of domestic battery, destruction of property, and potentially false imprisonment, taking him into custody, his false charm utterly dissolved by the harsh reality of handcuffs and legal accountability, as the justice system prepared to intervene and hold him responsible for the terror he had inflicted upon us under the guise of an idyllic family vacation, restoring a sense of order.
Back at the local sheriff's office, while Maria received support from victim services, we were interviewed at length by investigators, revealing the full scope of Alex's manipulative behavior, his hidden past, and the chilling extent of his psychological and emotional abuse. They confirmed our suspicions. Alex had a history of preying on vulnerable individuals, expertly weaving himself into their lives before systematically isolating and controlling them, a pattern disturbingly similar to other real-life cases of domestic abuse and hidden personalities. He was not family material, but a calculated predator who had used our vacation as a stage for his insidious power games. His arrest and subsequent charges brought a profound sense of relief,
but also a stark realization of how easily a wolf in sheep's clothing can infiltrate one's most intimate spaces, turning a place of joy into a setting for terror. The serene beauty of Lake Tahoe, though now tinged with a haunting memory, would forever stand as a testament to the fact that even in paradise, vigilance is paramount, and true protection sometimes comes not from within, but from the timely intervention of external justice, exposing the hidden malice lurking beneath the surface of seemingly normal interactions. Our family tradition at Lake Tahoe continued, but forever changed. The lake house, once a haven of carefree joy, now held a faint echo of the fear we had experienced, a sober reminder of the unexpected darkness that can infiltrate even the most cherished moments. We learned a painful but invaluable lesson about discernment, about looking beyond the charming facade, and about the importance of trusting our instincts when something feels fundamentally off. The incident forged a stronger bond within our family, a shared understanding of vulnerability and the critical need to protect one another from hidden dangers. It served as a chilling testament that some of the most profound horrors are not supernatural entities lurking in the shadows, but rather the calculated cruelty of a human being disguised as a friend, turning a dream vacation into a living nightmare, and forever altering our perception of trust and the fragile security of our personal sanctuaries.
Our small group of ecology enthusiasts had eagerly anticipated this expedition into the heart of the Florida Everglades, a week-long research and photography trip into one of America's most unique and unforgiving wildernesses. Dr. Elias Vance, our charismatic and renowned team leader, had been highly recommended by our university professors, his reputation as a fearless environmentalist and seasoned Everglades guide preceding him. He promised an unparalleled immersion into the wetlands, a chance to witness rare wildlife and contribute to vital conservation efforts, assuring us of his profound knowledge of the treacherous terrain and his unwavering commitment to our safety, a shield against the numerous unseen dangers of the vast, primordial swamp. The initial days were awe-inspiring, navigating labyrinthine waterways by airboat, spotting elusive panthers and alligators, and collecting data on migratory bird patterns. The humid air hummed with life, the vastness of the sawgrass prairies stretching to the horizon under the relentless Florida sun, creating a sense of isolation and wonder, perfectly setting the stage for the subtle dread that would soon envelop our unsuspecting team.
The first unsettling signs emerged after we set up our base camp deep within a remote section of the preserve, far from any tourist trails. Dr. Vance, who had been the picture of composure, began exhibiting erratic behavior, his meticulous planning dissolving into impulsive decisions. He insisted on venturing into increasingly dense and dangerous areas, dismissing our concerns about getting lost or encountering venomous snakes. His once inspiring lectures turned into rambling monologues about humanity's impending doom, his eyes taking on a feverish glint. He started isolating certain team members, assigning them solo tasks in perilous zones, and became disproportionately angry over minor errors, his temper flaring with unpredictable intensity. The swamp, with its oppressive humidity and teeming life, began to feel less like an adventure and more like a claustrophobic trap, its natural beauty overshadowed by the growing unease emanating from our esteemed leader. His carefully curated image of a benevolent guide began to crack, revealing unsettling glimpses of a darker, more volatile personality lurking beneath the surface, transforming our scientific mission into a chilling descent into the unknown. The situation escalated dramatically on day 3 after a graduate student named Chloe failed to return from a solo survey of a distant Cypress dome, a task Dr. Vance had specifically assigned her despite our objections. When we voiced our alarm, Dr. Vance remained eerily calm, almost dismissive, suggesting she was merely delayed or had found a more interesting research subject, his nonchalance chilling. "She'll turn up," he stated, his voice devoid of concern, his eyes fixed on some unseen point in the distance, a peculiar, detached expression on his face. His lack of concern was profoundly disturbing, a stark betrayal of his supposed role as our protector. He refused to initiate a search party, forbidding us from leaving camp, citing the dangers of the swamp at night. The oppressive silence of the Everglades, usually filled with the sounds of insects and distant wildlife, now felt heavy with an unspoken dread, amplifying the chilling realization that our guide, the one who promised to protect us, was either dangerously negligent or, far worse, somehow complicit in Chloe's disappearance, leaving us stranded in the suffocating embrace of the vast, unforgiving wilderness.
The abuse began more overtly after Chloe's disappearance. Dr. Vance asserted absolute control, confiscating our satellite phones and emergency beacons, claiming they would interfere with sensitive equipment, effectively cutting off any external communication. He enforced a new regimen of forced, grueling hikes through thick mangroves and mosquito-infested swamps, pushing us to the brink of exhaustion, seemingly deriving a perverse satisfaction from our suffering. He systematically rationed our dwindling food and water, despite our hidden supplies, ensuring our constant dependence on him, weakening our resolve with every agonizing, parched step. Any attempt to question his authority or inquire about Chloe's fate was met with chilling threats, veiled warnings about the dangers of challenging a true expert in the unforgiving Everglades. His once inspiring lectures now twisted into chilling pronouncements about survival of the fittest, his eyes glinting with the cold, predatory intelligence that seemed to mirror the ancient, indifferent malevolence of the swamp itself, transforming our scientific expedition into a terrifying struggle for survival as we became increasingly aware of the insidious cruelty of our malevolent guide. We secretly organized a plan to escape, to find a way to signal for help. Liam, a fellow student with a knack for electronics, managed to bypass the lock on Dr. Vance's waterproof duffel bag, hoping to retrieve a hidden emergency beacon. Meanwhile, I meticulously mapped our approximate location using old-fashioned compass and celestial navigation, hoping to find a recognizable landmark or a way back to a more populated area. We operated under a veil of extreme secrecy, always aware of Dr. Vance's unnerving presence, his eyes seemingly everywhere, his senses acutely attuned to any deviation from his imposed order. The Everglades, with its dense foliage and countless hiding spots, offered both concealment and an oppressive sense of entrapment. Every rustle in the sawgrass, every splash in the murky water, a potential sign of danger or discovery. The very air seemed to thicken with our shared anxiety, and the humid nights were filled with whispered consultations and the terrifying realization that our lives depended on our ability to outwit the man who had promised to protect us, a chilling, desperate gamble for survival against overwhelming odds. The breaking point arrived on day 5. Liam, after successfully retrieving a spare emergency GPS from Dr. Vance's bag, accidentally activated it while attempting to hide it in his own pack, emitting a faint, high-pitched signal. This sound, almost imperceptible to us, instantly alerted Dr. Vance, whose ears seemed unnaturally sharp. He spun around, his eyes blazing with a terrifying fury, instantly understanding Liam's betrayal. He lunged at Liam, tackling him to the muddy ground, the struggle a desperate, silent battle amidst the thick mangroves. He then retrieved the device, smashing it against a cypress knee, its shattered pieces sinking into the murky water, effectively severing our last lifeline to the outside world. The raw violence of the act, coupled with the loss of our only hope, plunged us into a fresh wave of despair. Realizing that our attempt at freedom had only solidified our captor's ruthless control, confirming his malicious intent. The Everglades, with its vast, indifferent expanse, now truly felt like our tomb, its impenetrable beauty masking the unfolding horror, leaving us utterly at the mercy of our deranged guide, whose true violent nature had finally been unleashed in the most brutal way imaginable. Just as despair threatened to consume us, a faint, distant hum rippled through the thick, humid air. It was the distinct sound of a motorboat, growing steadily louder, cutting through the silence of the swamp like a lifeline. Dr. Vance, momentarily distracted by the sound, hesitated, his eyes darting frantically towards the noise, a flicker of genuine panic replacing his usual chilling composure. The boat grew closer, its engine roaring, and then a powerful searchlight cut through the dense foliage, illuminating our desperate tableau in a blinding beam. The light landed on us, then on Dr. Vance, who instantly recoiled, his face contorted in a mixture of fear and rage. The sudden, overwhelming presence of external intervention seemed to shatter his illusion of absolute control, his malicious reign abruptly ended by the unexpected arrival of civilization, a beacon of hope piercing through the suffocating darkness of the Everglades. The very air seemed to crackle with anticipation as the roar of the boat's engine signaled our imminent rescue and the undeniable end of our terrifying ordeal within the swamp. Within moments, 2 park rangers and a local sheriff's deputy, their faces grim, disembarked from the airboat, their presence a stark contrast to the oppressive solitude that had dominated our ordeal. They quickly secured Dr. Vance, who offered no resistance, his eyes vacant and defeated, the manic glint gone. They administered immediate first aid, providing us with precious sips of water and assessing our injuries, their calm professional demeanor a welcome balm after days of terror. The Rangers explained that a remote sensor buoy, which Liam had cleverly tampered with days earlier, a trick he'd learned from his hobby, had transmitted a faint, anomalous signal, triggering an automated alert to the Park Service. Coupled with a frantic, garbled message I had managed to record on a hidden voice recorder, later sent via a desperate burst transmission when Liam bypassed the signal blocker, another of his clever tricks, they had pinpointed our approximate location, launching a full-scale search and rescue operation, ultimately leading them directly to our secluded, remote campsite, saving us from a grim fate and bringing an abrupt end to Dr. Vance's sinister reign. Back at the ranger station, after receiving medical attention and undergoing extensive interviews, we learned the unsettling truth about Dr. Elias Vance. Investigators revealed he had a dark history of academic fraud, professional misconduct, and a deeply disturbing pattern of escalating sociopathic behavior meticulously concealed beneath his esteemed reputation. The Everglades, with its inherent isolation and extreme conditions, had provided the perfect stage for his suppressed delusions of control and power to fully manifest, allowing him to exert absolute dominance on those who trusted him, creating his own twisted ecosystem away from the constraints of society, where he was the apex predator. He was charged with aggravated assault, kidnapping, and reckless endangerment, facing significant prison time for his calculated cruelty as the legal system prepared to hold him accountable for the terror he had inflicted upon us under the guise of an environmental expedition, restoring a sense of justice to the wild, untamed beauty of the Everglades. Our group never returned to the Everglades, the memory of Dr. Vance's calculated cruelty forever tainting the pristine wilderness. Chloe's body was never recovered, but the police investigation eventually concluded that she had likely succumbed to the harsh elements after Dr. Vance deliberately abandoned her in a remote, dangerous section of the swamp. The incident left an indelible mark, a deep-seated caution about trusting blindly, and a profound appreciation for the true meaning of companionship and protection. We learn that while nature can be a formidable adversary, the human heart, when consumed by darkness and unchecked ambition, can be far more treacherous and unpredictable. The experience served as a chilling, painful reminder that not all those who claim to be protectors have your best interests at heart, and that sometimes the most insidious forms of abuse unfold not in the shadows of an urban alleyway, but under the vast, open skies of a beautiful, isolated vacation destination, where isolation becomes a tool for control, and the only escape lies in the vigilance of others and the timely arrival of justice, forever altering our perception of trust and vulnerability.
Our weekend getaway to Salem, Massachusetts was meant to be a fun, spooky escape. A chance for my sister, Emily, and her fiancé, Ben, to celebrate their engagement with a group of close friends before the wedding chaos began. Sarah, Emily's maid of honor and closest confidant, had organized the entire trip, from the quaint bed and breakfast reservations to the historical tours, ensuring every detail was perfect for our historical Halloween-themed adventure. She'd always been the planner, the organizer, the one everyone relied on to bring people together, and her enthusiasm for the witch trials history was infectious, setting a festive and intriguing tone for our group of 6, which included our other friends, Tom and Jessica. The first day was delightful, exploring the Witch Museum, browsing the charming shops, and indulging in local seafood, the crisp autumn air adding to the historic charm of the town, completely unaware of the insidious plot that was already brewing beneath the surface of our seemingly harmonious gathering. The subtle shifts began after an evening ghost tour, where Ben, playfully teasing Sarah, made a joke about her being the most organized witch of all. Sarah's smile stiffened, and her eyes, usually warm and bright, seemed to briefly harden with an uncharacteristic coldness. Over the next few hours, her demeanor towards Ben became subtly dismissive, her comments laced with passive aggression. initially brushed off as tired banter, but slowly evolving into something more pointed and malicious. She started whispering conspiratorially to Emily, drawing her away from Ben, planting seeds of doubt and suspicion about his behavior, his intentions, and even his loyalty to Emily, creating an unsettling atmosphere that cast a dark shadow over our supposed celebration. The charming colonial streets, once a source of historical intrigue, now felt increasingly claustrophobic, their ancient stones witnessing the slow, calculated erosion of a friendship, as Sarah's carefully constructed facade of camaraderie began to crack, revealing a hidden, unsettling agenda beneath.
The true maliciousness erupted on the second day, during a visit to the old Burying Point Cemetery, a somber site where many of the accused were laid to rest. Sarah, seemingly out of nowhere, began openly accusing Ben of infidelity, fabricating intricate details about secret messages and suspicious phone calls she allegedly found on Emily's phone, her voice rising in pitch, attracting the attention of other tourists. Her accusations were shocking, completely baseless, and delivered with a chilling conviction that stunned us all into silence, leaving Ben visibly distraught and Emily utterly confused, torn between her fiancé and her closest friend. "I'm just protecting you, Emily," Sarah declared, her eyes wide and seemingly sincere, but with a disturbing undertone of triumph, her performance chillingly convincing to any casual observer. The hallowed ground of the cemetery, a place of historical tragedy, became the stage for a modern-day witch hunt, a public shaming orchestrated by a supposed friend whose true insidious nature was now chillingly exposed, turning our historical tour into a devastating personal nightmare. The emotional abuse escalated rapidly after the cemetery incident. Sarah, now emboldened, systematically isolated Ben, turning Emily and our other friends against him with a relentless barrage of fabricated stories and manipulative whispers, portraying him as a liar, a cheat, and a threat to Emily's happiness. She used every private moment to sow discord, painting him as a monster and twisting every innocent action into proof of his alleged malice. Emily, caught in the crossfire and fiercely loyal to Sarah, began to believe the lies, her faith in Ben visibly crumbling under the weight of relentless gaslighting. Ben, devastated and confused, tried to defend himself, to reason with us, but his pleas were drowned out by Sarah's constant barrage of accusations and carefully crafted emotional blackmail, which she used to control Emily, ensuring Emily remained under her sway. The quaint bed and breakfast, once a cozy retreat, now felt like a battleground, its walls echoing with whispered betrayals and the agonizing sound of a relationship being systematically torn apart by the insidious cruelty of a supposed friend.
Our other friends, Tom and Jessica, caught in the escalating tension, tried to mediate, to bring reason back into the fraught situation, but Sarah, a master manipulator, deftly turned their efforts against them, accusing them of siding with Ben, of betraying Emily, and even threatening to expose their own private secrets if they didn't fall in line with her narrative. She carefully orchestrated situations to make Ben appear aggressive or unstable, twisting his desperate attempts to defend himself into further proof of his supposed guilt. The charming streets of Salem, usually bustling with tourists, now felt oppressive, their historical echoes of unjust accusations amplifying the horrifying reality of the modern-day witch hunt unfolding within our group. The very air seemed to crackle with Sarah's escalating malice, and the vacation, intended for celebration, had transformed into a psychological battleground
with Ben as the targeted victim, relentlessly under attack from a malicious force he couldn't comprehend, as the true nature of his supposed friend began to reveal itself with chilling, calculated precision. The breaking point arrived on the final evening, during a farewell dinner at a popular waterfront restaurant. Sarah, fueled by several glasses of wine and a twisted sense of triumph, launched into a public tirade against Ben, loudly recounting her fabricated accusations, her voice echoing through the crowded dining room, deliberately humiliating him in front of strangers. She then physically confronted him, grabbing his arm and attempting to snatch his phone, claiming he was hiding evidence, her actions drawing horrified stares from other patrons. Ben, pushed to his absolute limit, recoiled, instinctively trying to defend himself, his face a mask of shock and despair. The usually lively atmosphere of the restaurant turned silent, all eyes fixed on our table, as the public nature of the abuse shattered any remaining illusion of a private family dispute, revealing the full extent of Sarah's calculated cruelty. The charming Salem setting, which promised a fun escape, had become a public arena for a devastating, meticulously orchestrated display of psychological torture and public humiliation.
Just as Sarah's outburst reached a crescendo, two uniformed police officers who had been alerted by concerned restaurant staff witnessing the public disturbance approached our table. Their calm, authoritative presence cut through the tense silence like a knife, instantly halting Sarah's tirade. She froze, her eyes widening in sudden, panicked realization as the reality of external authority bore down on her. The officers, their expressions grim, calmly asked what was happening, observing the shattered peace and Ben's visibly distressed state. Sarah, momentarily stunned, attempted to revert to her charming, innocent facade, trying to spin a narrative of a misunderstanding or a heated family argument, but her voice wavered and her composure visibly cracked. The unexpected arrival of law enforcement felt like a miraculous intervention, a sudden, powerful shift in dynamics that brought an abrupt and undeniable end to Sarah's cruel reign of terror, her carefully constructed web of lies finally unraveling under the scrutiny of the law. The officers, experienced in domestic disputes and public disturbances, quickly separated Sarah from the group. While one officer questioned the restaurant staff, the other calmly listened to Ben, who, though shaken, bravely recounted Sarah's escalating campaign of lies and psychological abuse, his voice trembling but resolute. Emily, finally seeing the situation through clearer eyes, corroborated Ben's account, admitting Sarah had been manipulating her. The officers, having witnessed Sarah's initial public display and observing her evasiveness, quickly moved to arrest her. They informed her she was being charged with public disturbance and harassment and potentially facing further investigation into emotional abuse and defamation. As they led her away in handcuffs, Sarah glared at us, a chilling, venomous look of pure hatred that confirmed the depth of her malice, leaving no doubt about the true, insidious nature of the person we once considered a trusted friend, whose malicious agenda had finally been exposed by the timely arrival of the authorities.
Back at the local police station, after receiving support from victim services and undergoing extensive interviews, we learned the full extent of Sarah's disturbed motivations. Investigators revealed she harbored a deep-seated jealousy of Emily and a history of manipulative behavior, consistently sabotaging Emily's relationships out of a twisted sense of possessive friendship. The engagement had apparently pushed her over the edge, leading her to orchestrate this calculated witch hunt to destroy Ben and Emily's relationship, mirroring the insidious tactics of real-life emotional abusers. Her charges were significant, reflecting the severity of her psychological torment and public humiliation. The historic town of Salem, known for its dark past of unjust accusations, had unwittingly become the stage for a chilling modern-day reenactment. A stark reminder that even in places steeped in history, the most terrifying monsters are not ghosts from the past, but rather the calculated, insidious cruelty of a human being, disguised as a trusted companion, turning a dream vacation into a waking nightmare, forever altering our perception of trust and vulnerability in the most unexpected of places.